Very, very warm welcome for those of you who've joined from around the world. Clearly, we have a global family here coming together to hold space for about an hour. And I want to say much, much deep gratitude for all of you, wherever you're joining from. I know it's very odd hours of the day or night, and you have taken the effort to be here. So rest assured, you will not be disappointed. My name is Jay Chodagam. I'm based in the San Francisco Bay Area. I've been a meditation practitioner for about 22 years, and I've been a teacher for about 16 years. And my journey started when I was in university, and the question around this sense of feeling purposeful at the height of both my sports career and my academic career. I was asking myself, is this what happiness is, and what is the true source of my happiness? And that led me to India, and I'm going to weave in some stories from my very early days that have brought me to this point here in front of you today. So today we're going to talk about something that is the essence, as I understand, about spirituality. Soul consciousness sits at the heart of spiritual practices, in my understanding. And I'm going to talk about what is soul consciousness, how do you develop soul consciousness, and what happens as a result of you becoming more and more soul conscious as you practice it. What are some of the changes that you'll notice in yourself? And as we go along, I'm going to share some stories to kind of weave all of these different aspects together. How does that sound from an agenda perspective? Give me a quick thumbs up, give me a quick heart, whatever is easy for you guys. Anything else that you want me to talk about? Anything else? So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and share for a little bit, and then we will go into a guided meditation, a nice long guided meditation, right? 20 minutes or so. And then towards the end of this period, about 50 minutes into the whole meeting, I will open it up for questions. Now, you're welcome to go ahead and post the questions in the course of the conversation or the meditation, but just be aware that I'm not going to be able to focus on both talking and monitoring what's going on, as you can imagine. So what I invite you to do is that when I open it up for questions later in this discussion, please go ahead and repost your question if you feel that it hasn't been addressed through the dialogue that we're having, okay? So I also want to take a moment to say thank you very much for those of you who make contributions. They're much appreciated. This is an ecosystem of people that I support, that you are supporting. I have a sound engineer in Bosnia. I have a video editor who does those YouTube videos, those of you who've seen them. He sits in Barranquilla, Colombia. I have a web designer in England, and I have a web developer in India, and a social media person in Philippines, Baguio, Philippines. So every bit of your contributions goes to support this vast crew of amazing individuals who pour their heart into this effort that they do to just put out good word and spread the message of peace and harmony. So with that said, I want to share with you my story of how I embarked on this journey. So I mentioned to you I was in university, and I was asking myself, I was in the number one program in the world. I was studying petroleum engineering, and I was in a full scholarship at the university. I was a national champion sailor. And yet, when I went to sleep at night, during my college days, I would be staring up at the ceiling and asking myself, why am I not truly happy despite all of these overt achievements? And the answer was a blank. I didn't know. I just knew that the life that I was pursuing, that material pursuit of wealth, seemed shallow. It seemed like that was not my objective, but I didn't fully understand what was it then that I needed to embark on to feel more fulfilled and feeling a sense of purpose. So every Christmas I would go home for vacation to India to visit my parents. And so that year as well, I made that trip. And there's a saying in India, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And so the teacher appeared in the form of a childhood friend of mine who went to high school with me. And at that time, he was pursuing a PhD in psychology. And he had been awarded the best young scientist in India by the president. He won the president's gold medal. And this fellow, good friend of mine, started meditating. And it baffled me because it was very unconventional. He came from an Orthodox Muslim family, and his practice now, as I understood it from the outside, was clearly not something to do with the religion of Islam as I knew it. It was something else. And because he was a good friend and because he was a very intellectual person, I was curious and I asked him, and he said, you need to come and, take a meditation course. And I said, you know what? I do all kinds of different things, but meditation is not on my list. But then we went to a beautiful flute concert. I got tickets to one of the maestros, one of the number one flute player in the world as far as I know, Hariprasad Chaurasya, if you are into Bansuri music. And after that very soothing, beautiful concert, so this guy brought up the topic again, and we got into this discussion about spirituality. And he says, tomorrow we have a course starting at the meditation center. Why don't you just come and try? So I go there, and the very first conversation on day one, there was a multi-day, multi-part series. They were talking about this idea of who am I and what am I here on this earth to do? And it blew my mind, just the fact that they're even having that inquiry. I said, this is something that every university, every education program, every corporate, every community should be asking themselves this fundamental question. Every child should be exposed to this, and yet nobody's doing it. And these guys are doing it at such ease. So anyways, I take the meditation course and I come back to Austin, Texas. That's where I was in university. And so the sister, the teacher who taught me the introductory course to meditation, she gave me a cassette tape. So this was back in the day when we still did cassettes. And so I popped this cassette one morning, early morning. I don't know, must have been 4 or 5 a.m. It was still dark outside. I remember I put a blanket around myself, got up, and I wanted to try, because the Raja Yoga, which is this form of meditation that I had just learned, they emphasize in this idea of Amrit Vela, early morning hour of nectar. That's what the translation is. The hour of nectar is between 4 and 5 a.m. So I must have woken up somewhere in that window, and I sat and popped that cassette tape into the player that I had, and I started listening to the meditation commentary. So in the commentary, the first part of it was a journey about going into becoming aware of yourself as a soul. And the second part of it is that the soul is actually separate from the body, and one can actually transcend the body, and the soul can actually go above. And then as it rises, as it goes to higher energy states or conscious states, it reaches a state where it's in union with the Supreme Soul. And the Supreme Soul, by the definition of Raj Yoga, is non-gender. It's not a physical form. It's energy, just like the soul is energy. The Supreme Parent is energy. And you're in the presence of Supreme Being. One is showered. One is soaked in love, peace, bliss, joy, etc. And I don't know how long that experience lasted, but what I do know is when I finished that experience, that the cassette tape must have run out, and if you remember, it clicks, and then when it clicked, I noticed that every pore in my body was oozing energy, was radiating peace unlike I'd ever experienced in my life. And this is me just playing a cassette tape in my college dorm in the middle of winter, right? And I said to myself there, like, people do drugs and alcohol for this kind of a trip. And I'm getting that just by sitting and thinking or listening to this tape. I said, this stuff is amazing. I need to delve into it. And if I never had I experienced such levels of joy and power, personal power, or just about, sense of well-being and being fully in charge of my own life and myself, I said, this is something that I need to experiment. I need to delve into some more. I need to research this. And then story goes on that I went and started a club on campus at the University of Texas at Austin. And then the momentum grew, and here we are. I have left my career in engineering a long time ago, and this is what I do. I take a lot of joy and gives me a great sense of purpose to help people find meaning in their lives and slow themselves down to ask what really matters and how they can align their life along what really matters for them in life. So that was that episode in my college dorm, now 20 something 2 years ago, was my first experience of being in touch with myself, which was an incredible experience. And I really wish that either through the course of today's session or what you take away, hopefully practice on your own from today's session, if you haven't already had it, I'm assuming if you haven't already had it, then you will be guided to it. And whether it's going to happen today or tomorrow, we all have to unpack a lot, and we all have our own journeys of getting in touch and removing the scabs. And you'll understand what I mean by scabs in due course of today. I'd really wish that really from the bottom of my heart, hope that you all get that experience. So what is soul consciousness? Now, I want to relate this by a particular practice that we have in the East. Have you noticed that when you go to a country like India, Nepal, China, Japan, Thailand, we leave our shoes outside the home? Now, have you also noticed that when you go to a temple in any of these countries, you also leave your shoes outside the temple, the place of worship? Now, it's not just some sort of a hygiene ritual that's done in warmer climates because we can't afford to take off your shoes and we won't be frozen. There's another deeper meaning to it. The shoe, the leather, that thing that you wear, when you leave the shoes, the leather outside, it is a surrendering of your body consciousness. It is letting go of the coil that wraps around my essence. I'm taking my essence into the shrine, such that it may be easier for me to meet the divine. Soul to the Supreme Soul, in whatever way, shape, or form that particular religion practices it. So soul consciousness is about really going back to our essence. It's our essence of who we are, the being that animates this body, that breathes life into it, that makes it come alive, which is otherwise made out of material. It's made out of the elements of nature. But what inspires thought? What inspires creativity? What inspires consciousness? What inspires empathy? That is attributes of the subtle being. It's the attribute of the one that is animating, giving life, and using this body. And that one who animates is an eternal traveler. The one who animates has been traveling forever through time, and in different phases of the journey takes on a costume called the body to play a role in this drama that we call life, on the stage that we call planet Earth. Now, as we have begun to play our parts in this drama on the stage, in this body, we often forget that we are actually the actor and not the costume. Because, there's so much around us. We look in mirrors. Now, we live in a world of selfies. All right? We live in a world of social media where you're constantly having to show who you are and, take all these pictures at different angles and let the world know how great you are feeling or doing or where you are at this point in time. So we often tend to confuse our identity with the costume. And when we confuse our identity and we forget that we are the soul that is playing a role through this costume, and we think that we are the costume, that's when your stress, your anger, your ego, jealousy, discontentment, etc., kick in. It's in this misidentification of the self that we begin to lose the power, the self-respect, the peace, that we originally are. It's inherent within us. Peace, love, joy, power is inherent within the human being, each one of us, the soul. But when we misidentify, when we get attached to the costume, that's when the stresses and the strains begin. And so the obvious antidote, the obvious solution to that is waking up. And sometimes waking up comes with a great cost. We know when your egg is cracked, when your hard nut that you built around yourself that's protecting you from any other thing, and says, you know what, I know. And this, by the way, in spirituality, as much as soul consciousness is the greatest power, the greatest strength, the essence, the worst thing that we can do when we are on this journey of waking up is these words, I know. Because when you say, I know, the learning stops, the growing stops, the awakening is stalled. So we build this shell of this false identity, and then we begin to say that I know. And then there is dis-ease that fills into your life. And slowly the dis-ease becomes more and more uncomfortable, stressful. And slowly the meter, if you would think of a meter of that angst, begins to grow to a point of frustration, to a point of anxiety, to points of depression. And sometimes that is an implosion for certain people, depending on what your mental chemistry or mental constitution is. For some people, it's an explosion in the form of rage or anger, right? So that whole spectrum of dis-ease, uneasiness, restlessness to a complete outburst of anger, anything on that spectrum is basically losing ourselves from our original identity, losing ourselves from the seat of our own power, joy, and happiness. And so how do we reclaim that? How do we get back to that? Simply, it's a 3-step process. The first step in the process is the awakening, just noticing, becoming aware that I am feeling some sense of dis-ease. Why? Noticing, first of all, that I have gotten away from my state of inner calm and quietness that is natural to me. And then the second phase is, after awareness comes the phase of inquiry or realization. Realize, ask yourself, why do I feel off center? Why do I feel I've been thrown off from my well pool of happiness and joy? Could it be because of some belief system, the disease of belief? What kind of a belief have I got caught up in? What have I bought without sometimes even consciously realizing? And so when I'm able to look at what has taken me off my center, then the third phase, which is transforming. I become aware, I realize why, and I transform that belief system. I let that belief system get out and go back to my original state of awareness, my original identity, going back into the seat of my authority, where you have incredible personal power, incredible self-respect. Folks, I cannot say enough about the importance of self-respect. It determines everything, your relationships, your sense of well-being, your commitment, your ability to pursue and prevail in your different pursuits. Self-respect, knowing my worth, determines how far you can go, how far you can be happy as you go along, how many people you're able to take with you. And it doesn't cost you, you don't need to be anything special. You don't need to have anything. It's not about what you have. It's already inherent in you. It's not about who you know. Because when you walk in your grace, when you walk in your power, people see that. They don't need to hear anything. They don't need to have big speeches or some fancy titles behind your name. They see the light that's shining in front of them, and people will be attracted, just like the moths are attracted to the candle. It's really about us coming back to the seat of our consciousness. Throne. There's this beautiful metaphor in the Bhagavad Gita. Those of you who've read this text from the East, there is the 5-horse chariot. You know what the 5 horses represents? Each one represents one of your 5 senses. So it is shown in that religious text that there is this 5-horse chariot that this famous archer, Arjuna, had ridden that onto the battlefield with his charioteer, Lord Krishna. Now, Lord Krishna, interesting, if you think about the metaphor, Lord Krishna, God in the Hindu mythology, is in the battlefield on the side of Arjuna, the great archer, fighting his millions of the enemies. And yet God says, I will not lift my finger. I will not fight for you. I will teach you. I'll awaken you. I will bring you back to your original dharma. Dharma, your purpose for why you're here. But I will not fight for you. And so the 5-horse chariot in that analogy is your senses that are leading you astray, that is causing you all kinds of disbelief, all kinds of misinformation, all kinds of confusion, distractions. Right? Look what the 5 senses does. You get an overwhelming amount of impetus, the stimulation that confuses you, that removes you from your center, takes you away from your own awareness of who you are. And so the practice in Raja Yoga, what Lord Krishna teaches Arjuna, is about getting back to the awareness of who am I, who do I belong to, and what is my purpose here to do. Essence of the Bhagavad Gita, right there. And at the end, when he goes back into claiming his own authority of who he is, reclaims his place, the horses come under their control, the master's control. So the soul, in this analogy, the soul becomes the charioteer that has complete control on my 5 senses. All right, so now, having given you the theory around what soul consciousness is, let me take you through an experience of dropping into soul consciousness, and then see that fill the space around you, and then we will send it out to the world. Okay, so before we do that, I ask that you please do some stretching with me. We've been listening, we've been sitting here, God knows how long you've been sitting. I've been sitting here definitely for over 40 minutes. So I want you to take your palms, interlock them facing out, and I want you to please raise them. Raise, squeeze, squeeze, squeeze as high as you can. Now look up, and then let them drop from the sides. Let's do this one more time. Put your fingers together, interlock your palms facing out. Raise, squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. Look at my biceps are touching my ears, and then I'm going to look up. Don't hold your breath. Let the breathing keep going. And now I invite you to downshift your gaze or close your eyes as you see fit. Whether you're seated on a chair, lying on the floor, you're standing, whatever it is, all I ask you to do is to be alert. If you're upright, if you're sitting or standing, I ask that you make sure your shoulders are dropped, your neck is straight, head is held high. Make sure you're not holding any tightness in your body. Letting go of any tightness in the abdomen. Relaxing the neck. Making sure you're breathing in as I described earlier. You're breathing in through the nostrils and you're exhaling through your mouth. This is called diaphragmatic breathing. And when you breathe nice and deep like this into the belly, you automatically begin to relax the body. Now on the screen of your mind, using your power of visualization, I want you to imagine a transparent sphere, like a massive transparent glass sphere. Now imagine that this sphere represents your consciousness. The inner surface of the sphere represents your mind. It is the screen that is all around you, the self-aware self. And inside at the center of the sphere, there is a ball of light. This ball of light represents your spiritual heart, the core of your being. Connecting the ball of light, that is your heart, to the surface of the sphere, which is your mind, is a long line. And that line can be moved with your intellect. As you see different images, as you move from scene to scene, it's the eye of the mind, the intellect, that's connecting your heart to your mind. You, the self-aware self, can move the eye of your intellect along the line, sometimes using the mind in a rational process of thinking. You're thinking through on the screen. Or you, the self-aware self, can bring your inner eye down to the other end of the line, to the heart of your being, to the core of your consciousness, where there is intuition, where you have feelings that can arise. So you, the self-aware self, can move easily between the two using the intellect. You can move from the rational mode, which tends to require much thought generation, in the thinking mode, you're doing many scenarios, possibility thinking. And when you're in the center, at your spiritual heart, you are in the intuitive mode. And in this intuitive mode, it requires a lot of quietness in the mind. And in that clarity, the clarity of awareness, you can see deeper. You can notice aspects that are very subtle, that are not obvious to the rational mind. So for the next few moments, if you find yourself getting pulled to the surface of the sphere, to the images, to the thinking, to the logic, gently tell yourself that I want to sit in my heart and bring yourself down to the ball of light. To the seat of consciousness. In this awareness of being in your spiritual heart, there's the awareness of eternity. There's the awareness of no beginning and no end. I, the soul, have always existed. I do not have a birth, and therefore I will not ever die. As we've learned that energy always exists. It can never be created or destroyed. And this awareness of eternity liberates me from fear, which is a sense of loss. The ultimate fear of humans is the fear of death, when in fact the soul, the real me, never dies. I just move from one costume, from one scene to another. In the awareness of being the soul, not the role, I realize that my form is light. My language is silence. My religion is love. And my home is a world beyond this hustle and bustle of this noisy world. I, the being of light, come from a realm of beautiful, healing light. That's the backstage of our souls. And in that realm of light, I'm completely safe. I'm secure in my identity. And I'm completely comfortable with who I am, exactly as I am. I have nowhere to go, nowhere else to be, nothing to prove. I enjoy the bliss of being. And in this realm of light, I am suspended there like a tiny diamond, shimmering, radiating my original energy of peace and love. And in that stillness, in that home of light, I feel the presence of the Supreme Being. my spiritual parent, the parent of me, the soul. The Supreme Being is also a point of energy, but is radiant, consistent, unconditional. And as I focus on this Supreme Parent, my Supreme Mother, Supreme Father, that light shines into me, through me, and cleanses me. And as I bask under the light of the divine, all my hidden past resentment, anger, trauma, they all begin to be washed away until all there is left is light. And I fill myself until there is nothing, absolutely no nooks and crannies where I'm holding any negative feelings. And when I feel washed, I then direct this light towards some person, some people, or a place that you feel needs this healing energy. And just like the moon reflects the rays of the sun, send this light to that person, people, or place as an act of compassion. Now I want you to bring your palms together at your heart, and I want you to, with your eyes closed, rub your palms against each other. The palms are an energy vortex, and as you rub your palms together, you're creating great amount of healing energy. And when you feel there's enough warmth in your palms, I want you to cup your palms on both your eyes, one on each eye, and bless yourself. May all trouble in my life be removed. May all obstacles in my life be removed. May complete health reign in my body. And may equanimity reign in my mind. Bringing your hands back to your heart. Take a deep bow of gratitude. Thank everyone and everything that has made this moment possible for you to have this wonderful experience. And if you could summarize how you're feeling at this moment right now in one word, what would that be? And I want you to please share that one word in the text. Wonderful. I'm beginning to see grateful, more grateful, lightness, gratitude, peaceful, grateful, hopeful, blessed, released. Wow, beautiful, wonderful, wonderful, amazing. See, such is the power of soul consciousness, and the beauty is that it is inherent. It's not something that we need to seek outside. Once you're in soul consciousness, there is so much letting go of the yearning to become more complete with something. Now, folks, that's one of the greatest misidentifications, one of the greatest misconception, that I can become more full with something. I can never become full. I can never become better. I can never become greater with something, because I'm not a thing. All we have to do is going back into the heart of our own immense reservoir of our own beauty, of our own brilliance, our wisdom. The guru is within. We just need to take the time to tap in and go and let go of this belief systems, this large amount of misidentification that comes because of our pursuit of on the outside, the misinformation campaigns, which is unfortunately part of the education system. Because if it's nothing, something that cannot be measured, then that means it doesn't exist. But spirit is not a physical thing. It cannot have a physical attribute to it like weight, height, breadth, etc. And therefore, as science has exploded, spirituality has become confusing. It's become something that people don't understand. It's become such an obscure subject. And there's so much baggage around religion that sometimes the whole thing gets thrown out of the window, the baby with the bathwater. And then we realize, after all of the scientific advancement, why are we not better off as a human race? Why are we not more happy, peaceful? Why are we not, why is this planet not thriving? And if something is broken, maybe it's time for us to reflect and go back into the core of who we are and why we're here on this planet, which is what soul consciousness is. Folks, go ahead and post your questions. This is a good time to do that. And as your questions are coming in, I just want to make another shout out for those of you who have donated. I appreciate the donations. They go a long way in supporting the entire cast of crew that supports me, my video guy, my audio engineer, my web designer, my social media lady. This is a great amount of people that make my work that you see on video, on audio, all the editing, the social media, Instagram, etc. So your donations will go to support all of them. So I very much appreciate your contributions here. So let's see, what do you have here? So Cherry's asking the question, is the spirit and the soul the same to you? Yes, those are synonyms to me, Cherry. How to get into this mindset in the midst of stress. Okay, okay, remember my 3-step formula. So what is stress? Stress is when you have lost your way, when you have misidentified yourself with something, right? Now you're trying to hold that thing and you don't want that to change. You don't want that to be lost. You don't want it to behave outside of your control. And that's what kicks up, that's what creates stress. So the number one step, if you remember what I said, the 3-step process of soul consciousness, the practice of soul consciousness is becoming aware. Catching yourself that you're stressful is the number one step. The second step is realization. What is it? What's causing this? That means some identification. That means I have given the permission, thereby I am losing my personal power. And then the third step is transformation. Transforming that belief system, letting go of that thing, that mental clutch that I've put on that external attribute, that thing that I'm trying to control. All right? So that's how you do this. So let's see. What do I need to do to reconnect with my yogi self? Well, this is what we talked about. I'm laughing because yogi self is not, it's the self. There's no such thing as yogi self. So yoga is interesting, by the way. I don't know if that's even your intention of asking the question, but there's some depth to that I would like to elaborate on. Many times when you hear the word yoga, it's often misconstrued as physical asanas, right? Asanas is one aspect. The word yoga literally means connection or communion. So I'm connecting with somebody. Here we are. You're all connecting with me. So you're all having yoga with me, whether you realize it or not. When I think about somebody, when I think about my deceased grandmother, I'm having yoga with my grandmother. When I'm thinking about the beautiful flowers, I'm looking at the sun and I'm looking at the clouds, I'm having yoga with nature. Okay, so we all are having yoga with something all the time. The question is, what is it? Is that something that's empowering? So when you say, my yogic self, here's what I'd ask that you do. I'd say, change that into the yoga of the self, which is Raj Yoga. So connect with yourself, which is what today's practice was around soul consciousness. So let's see. So there was another part to that question. Let's see if I can go back to that. I don't practice anymore, but I used to 2 times a day. Well, Rachel, welcome back to the practice. Hopefully today has kick-started that process for you. It's all about, the inertia, right? If you had not been practicing, it's hard to get into a practice. And if you have been practicing, it's hard not to practice, right? So whichever way you're going, it's all about momentum and inertia. So hopefully today is that change in your dynamic. It's a change in that wheel, this flywheel, that today, as you practice this, keep up the practice. And when you mentioned 2 times a day, I want to give it a shout out. That is very important. Somebody asked me the last week, what are the best times to meditate? And I said the twilight zones. Dawn and dusk. Those are known to be, from energetic standpoint, some of the best times to meditate, right? If you think about the namaz that is read by the Muslims 5 times a day, those 2 times, besides the 3 other times, those 2 times are very important. They break fast after the sun sets. There's a reason why many traditions around the world have those times as a very precious time to meditate. So good. So let's see. How do I know what is my soul and what is my costume? Good. Okay, look in the mirror. Anything that has a weight, shape, color, size is your costume. Anything that says, I experience, I feel, I understand. The I is different from my body, my face, my clothes, my car, right? My is my costume. So they are my belongings. I am the soul. Okay. Let's see. Sometimes I wonder if soul also goes into the body of animals or vice versa. I really feel for animals and connected to them. Yeah, because you see the soul is very, very sensitive. It has this huge radius of influence. And likewise, it has a huge ability to get influenced by things that are very distant. You all know about this idea of telepathy. I'm sure if you're in this group here, if you're listening to me, quite likely you are already very well versed with this idea of telepathic communication. You know how sometimes somebody sends you an email, you haven't opened your inbox, but you're thinking about that person. Somehow that person just pops up before the doorbell rings. You feel the presence of somebody. How does this happen, right? So animals, humans, we all have this consciousness. We all have this awareness that is outside the realm of the five senses. That's why we call it the sixth sense, right? ESP, extrasensory perception. We all have it. Now, here's the thing. The more you're caught up in your five senses and the stimulation of your five senses, your ESP or your sixth sense becomes subdued. So the more you begin to practice silencing your five senses, your sixth sense begins to blossom or it gets enhanced. Very simple. The more you start practicing meditation, the more you become perceptive. So animals is one example, but other human beings. In Raj Yoga, in my practice, where I studied as a monk for 18 years, they say the final subject is the language of the eyes. Nothing needs to be said. You look, you perceive, you know. That's how you communicate. Okay? What a wonderful experience. Thank you so much, Jay, and everyone. So what is the science behind telepathy? Well, I just explained it. Hopefully it's clear. So everything is energy. Is like, you think about it, sound is energy that when it gets emitted, it fills a room, right? For me, sound is an energy that is coming out of my mouth, through my sound box, vocal cords, into the microphone, through the internet, to you. So what is happening? Energy is getting transmitted. So also with the soul. The soul, the feelings get transmitted. The vibrations get transmitted. And that gets picked up by somebody else who also has a clean dish, who's capable of receiving. Right? If your dish is too dirty, if it's too scarred, tainted, then it's likely that you're going to miss some of it or all of the message. So what we're doing here in soul consciousness is we are cleaning this. We're cleansing the dish such that we may receive the signal and transmit it. Okay, great. How many times a day should I meditate? I think I answered that. I said at least twice. Meditate all the time. Yoga, like I said, is really, you're having a yoga all the time. It's something. So is it uplifting you or is it draining you? And if you catch yourself, number one step, awareness. Step two, realize. Third step, transform. If you find yourself being drained, turn your yoga to something more upbeat, uplifting, inspiring. Folks, thank you very much. We've come to the end of our time. And I do appreciate everybody's participation. Great discussion, awesome questions. Truly global gathering here, my soul tribe. So thank you again. Once again, a quick shout out for those of you who've made donations and those of you who are considering it. I really do appreciate this. It's going to help a lot of people. And I will see you back same time, same place next week. Until then, be happy, be strong, and be well.